Hi, fine.
I would like to get you here lined up to get grilled.
Yeah, okay.
So, wow, that's a setting. That's a setting. Phenomenal. Welcome to the Connected Car panel. Christoph, thanks for setting the stage about this topic. Last week, I actually joined a conference in Detroit, and Thilo Kozlowski, the chief analyst of Gartner, literally said, the connected car means the big bang moment for the car industry. And I even would go one step further. I would say it's like the third age of mobility. After inventing the wheel and the engine, we now have the internet in the car. Let's talk a little bit about that, what this means to this industry. I know that you guys expect me to grill these guys today on the supposedly first billion exit out of Berlin, the HERE acquisition from Nokia. Many questions, did Uber join the bid, and so on and so forth. They all have families, they all have to pay rent, the lawyers are looking on them, so we decided to skip that part. There are many other things to talk about. With Dieter May, with BMW, glad to have you. Dieter, BMW is being perceived for a long time as a leader in connectivity. Connected Drive is almost 10 years old now. But there's a new kid on the block when we see Tesla, right? Electro mobility is a big thing. With i3 and i8, you made an impressive market launch for our own range of cars. What else you have on the book to beat someone like Tesla?
This is not a product announcement today, so sorry for my voice. I was not at the party yesterday. I think the electromobility piece with the investment in the i3 and i8 was for us what we call the iconic change, so driving the strategy of the company forward. And I think that was a very valuable piece of work which was delivered. But I think there's three more iconic changes coming now or at the horizon already. The first one is basically autonomous driving, which will change the industry. The whole digitalization, the digital transformation of the industry will be really crucial and impact us a lot, not only on the, let's say, internal processes, manufacturing, etc., but especially on the product side. Because today already about 20% of the consumers would, according to a McKinsey study, change brands if the digital experience is not on par with competitors. And for us as a premium brand and with the legacy we have in Connected Drive, obviously we need to set the bar now much higher, getting much closer to the CE world, which consumers are used to. And the third piece, I think, and that was part of some of the presentations before, is about the operational model of car companies, which is, in my opinion, going to change. Probably from cars sold to miles driven with a BMW. Fleet management, ride sharing, all these new concepts will play a role. If you understand that only 4% today of the total installed car fleet is used at the same moment in time, 4% utilization, so this is nothing at all. So just think about the implications which could come. So the cross-section of autonomous driving, the digitalization of the car and the car companies, plus mobility services, I think that will really revolutionize the industry in the coming years.
Great, yeah. So, and it looks that you guys definitely are prepared that there will be no Nokia moment very soon coming to BMW. Little joke. Philipp, you are with Porsche. I think it's fair to say it's Porsche SE. It's the holding company. Recently quite prominent in the press because some changes in the company, but we don't want to talk about that. Get relaxed. You guys invested into Inrix, one of the leading traffic data providers recently, a significant amount of $50 million US, a bit more. And that was surprising to many of the industry, that step. What's the rationale behind that? Why is the Volkswagen Group now going into data? What you see into that?
Okay. Well, I need to correct you a little bit, Holger, because yes, Inrix is a leading traffic information provider, but it is a lot more. It's actually a crowdsourced, location-aware, big data company processing data in real time at an automotive grade. And real-time traffic is just the first application of that platform. The rationale of investing in the company is twofold. On the one hand, when you look at drivers, they want to get through traffic safely and fast. Most people care about when they will arrive, when they get into a car. So traffic plays a very important role, and in future also other services around what we call advanced driver assistance systems, what the road weather is like, whether there are parking spaces available, etc. So that is on the one side for drivers to be actually of interest for the car to be attractive. At the same time, it's important for policymakers, because policymakers are facing huge problems in cities. At the moment, we have half of the population in the world lives in cities. In 2050, 2/3 of the world's population will live in cities. They're becoming ever crowded. And with this kind of information, you will be able to manage traffic and, again, improve traffic flows, which will maintain attractiveness for individual mobility. So mayors of cities, like in London, are not trying to shut down their cities to cars.
No, very much. Will be there more investments in that direction that we could see from you?
We are actively looking for additional investments in the broader ecosystem around mobility, yes.
And you're still around for some context later on?
Absolutely.
Good, great. Christoph, Mercedes, technology leader in many fields, definitely, no doubt. You talked about extensively 10 minutes about a huge strategy and a huge sector from autonomous driving to consumer services. Huge Valley Labs, fantastic. I love you, Valley Labs, fantastic building, great team there. A lot of innovation and so on and so forth. But quite recently, we saw arising quite a substantial challenge coming out of the valley, out of that sector, into an industry that is not used to see that competition from there. That has to do with the fact that the value chain is migrating into software services on the one hand, and we have the big guys there. It also has to do with another speed, right? So an app is updated every 2 weeks. A car needs 7 to 10 years, right? So what's your view on that? How does a car maker these days cope with this challenge with the consumer industry coming up?
Yeah. Well, that's an excellent question. From that perspective, we are actually needing 42 months to design and to get a new car out in the field. We are changing the software of the ECUs in that vehicle quite regularly. But as you said, it's the heck of a time compared to what we are actually all used to in the digital world. So the point really is we need to come up with a sound architecture on board and within the vehicle, but also in the back-end infrastructures in order to loosely couple these two cycles, the CE cycle and the car cycle. So we are heavily investing in exactly this direction, in order to be able to bring new services into the vehicle or on the app by controlling for control or status of the vehicle. And this can only be achieved if you have a standardized platform available worldwide. And this is actually the point where it gets into the problem that this all runs in a pilot or in one market. You need to have it on a global scale by supporting these 2 million vehicles each year we are actually selling to our customers. So from that perspective, this is something we should have a careful look out of from the industry perspective, how to ensure that we are actually having a robust, agile platform available to bring new services into the vehicle, which has an abstraction layer getting these services available to our customers.
Question to you too. Car sharing, right? Very popular. We're talking in the automotive industry traditionally in a very fragmented environment. Yeah. Would you go so far when we talk about this challenge coming out of the valley that isn't it time somehow to break down those walls and defragment that and go car sharing into an environment where Drive Now and Car2Go, etc., is accessible for everyone as one network?
Yes. The point is really what is the good roadmap? Really moving forward with that said, and as the colleague said, it's not a question of that we will not see it. It's just a question of how we will approach it. And there will be there will be a lot of customers who will still own a car and will still love to own a car, but we need to have the answers in order to actually excessively make access to mobility and mobility services in that field in order to attract new customers to our vehicles, but also to the services which we are providing with that. And we just started that road, really moving into that direction. And we are very excited to explore now how would we actually improve our intramodal ecosystem even further. We will quite extensively stress that in the future, and on the other hand side, scale the car-to-go services massively worldwide.
So indeed, it turns to be a big bang moment for that industry. New things to come.
It will be.
Bo, Nokia Growth Partners, the investor here at stage for good reasons. You have one of the few pure connected car funds established over a year ago, I think, $100 million US. That's quite an amount of money. Why did you do that?
So am I on? Yeah. So I want to talk about time. I don't want to talk about cars.
I'll lean back.
In '99, I was part of launching wireless access protocol, a wireless application protocol around the world. And we talked a lot about how mobile and the internet was going to meet, and it was going to be huge. And at the time, we didn't know how right we were, and we didn't know how wrong we were. Because, of course, we thought it was going to be 2 years down the road, and then all this mobile internet would be pervasive all around the world. And it took another 10 years to mature. And then along that, it also cost Nokia its phone business, which is now with Microsoft. So quite a significant transformation, and having been part of that and seen that with the car, I think we are at a 98, 99 moment. So we believe that the transformation is going to be much more profound than what we understand today. But we also believe it's going to take a long time. We just talked about it yesterday also. 20% of the employment in Germany is related to the automotive industry. So there are some very significant industrial reasons why some of these pieces in the industry will not move that fast. Other pieces will move very, very quickly. So together with a business called HERE that Nokia has in Berlin, we had an idea to really go then more committed into the space and start investing. And again, as an investor, timing is everything, so back to time. And what we are very conscious of at the moment is, of course, to invest around those companies that have the venture-like scalability, and then sort of working our way into the ecosystem a little bit from the outside in, as also the ecosystem is changing and probably radically being redesigned over the next 10 years, right? So that's really the reason. It's a very, very big transformation, and we believe with a very profound impact for all of us. So that was the simple answer.
Very nice. Did you get it? You recently led a round, quite significant round, into Move It, right?
Yeah.
It's an intermodal routing company from Tel Aviv, I think they're based. Yeah. Almost $50 million round, which is significant. First of all, explain us a little bit the ratio behind that, and how does this relate to a connected car?
So a lot of services are going to go into the dashboard, and the car is one part of a transportation segment, if you will. Multimodal planning, multimodal travel is clearly something that's very important. So whether you come with your bike, or you walk, or you're on rideshare, you're in a bus, you're in a car, all of that needs to be somehow strung together. Mm-hmm. And also part of that information or availability needs to be fed into the car. So Move It does public transport planning across the world. The reason we invested was that they were growing very, very quickly, scaling also very, very rapidly around many markets. By the end of the year, there will be in about 1,000 metros around the world. And the data that they are gathering will be extremely valuable for all players in the ecosystem. And part of that data can also be fed into the car. So that was that was the rationale.
Good, great. So also good hope for Berlin-based Ali, who's very much in the same sector, right?
Yes.
Good, great. Scott, Ford is not too much known for technology leadership, which is not fair because you are working with Ford very closely in my daily life. I can say that there's definitely a different perception from the US than we have in Europe. You are very close to technology. You're leading developing programs across Europe and the Middle East, traveling Tel Aviv, all over Europe, etc. If I would give you all the money he has, right, what companies would you invest into?
Oh, wow. Oh, you really save a great question for last.
Here we go.
Which we didn't discuss beforehand, right?
You have 9 more minutes.
9 minutes, wow. I forgot my shopping list at home. Well, I think generally, as you well know, because we've sat on many panels and have talked around the world together, I'm very, very committed to working with startups. And obviously what we're doing with our broadened technology of allowing those types of applications and services to access our vehicle and vehicle data, I think is certainly kind of leading in that way. I think the kind of companies that I personally am interested in are obviously things that can help drivers in the vehicle itself, right? I think we have a lot of discussions internally about how can we really help drivers during that time of sitting in the car for hours on end in unfortunate traffic or doing other types of things. And you know, none of us really have the exact answer to that. I think it really ranges from a mixture of some of the stuff that Here and TomTom and others are doing around location. So location-related companies. I don't have a specific one in mind, but I would say companies that are offering interesting metadata that can be fed into the driver whilst they're on the go, for example. I'm a big fan of music, as we've been working together.
Good reason.
Absolutely. So not to say that we would invest in music companies, but I do think that entertainment in the vehicle, in a safe way, of course, is extremely useful for the driver. So coming up with experiences that help the driver along their journey. I've seen a lot of different experiences that are very siloed, right? Yeah. So I think you've come up with some interesting things on top of your AUPEO service that I think are value add on top of music, and I think that's a great start. Mm-hmm. I'd like to see more and more companies come to the table with some interesting things. We sold already,
you cannot invest anymore.
No, I know. You're well and truly taken care of on that front. But yes, that's, yeah.
Awesome. Great, thanks. Dieter, time is running off, but we still have about 5 minutes, and that I would like to build a little bit around where disruption will happen, right? We saw in Christoph's presentation, but we see this also every day, what you just said, that we have in this connected car, connected mobility, both angles, right? We have fundamental groundwork that might take 10, 15 years to develop technology. We see platforms coming up in only 3 years, like Uber, changing user behavior fundamentally. And we see very clever, lean consumer experiences that's changing. So what's your guess where you think the disruption will happen first?
I think, first of all, the cars themselves need to become proper software platforms, technology platforms you can really work on and scale. And that is probably something we need to learn from the CE world and get that right, because that is the basis for scaling consumer experiences. I think as a car company, we need to make sense of data. The car is not intelligent today, and we have tons of sensor data and behavioral data we can use to provide what we call invisible experiences, basically. I mean, in the future, it will not be go through 5 levels of menu items and somehow pick something which is not relevant for you, but the whole thing needs to be highly contextualized, and you have the great opportunity to basically manage the overall life cycle of the car. So for us, we are really looking into platform components, but also machine learning components to make sense of all that data, to provide the best experiences to the consumer. And I think that's where you can really make a big difference in product performance and convenience of the product, and create stickiness and loyalization to the brand, because it's not about selling an app in a car. That doesn't move the needle in the companies we are in, but it is much more about creating digital experiences which are so seamless that you just don't want to switch the brand anymore.
Right, right.
Can I just add a point to that? Because I absolutely agree. because see, we can get along as,
Say it again?
as car manufacturers. We can all get along here, right? No, absolutely agree. But I think we also, what is interesting is we all talk about the connected car, right? It's one of those hot topics that continuously comes up. What's interesting is if you actually look at the statistics of people who are actually using those experiences in the car, it's minute, right? Mm-hmm. And so I think as automotive manufacturers and also as developers and as partners that we work with, we have to create the demand and the reason for why people want to use this stuff. I think what we are challenged with is actually getting across a message to the customer, whether they're in the dealership or whether we're marketing to them. What is it that you're doing? Why do you want to use this in the car? How can it make your journey better? How can it be safer? A whole range of things. And I don't think we're doing a very good job of that at the moment. I think those things fundamentally need to change. Yeah.
I agree, and I just wanted to add to Dieter. I mean, I think the data element is a fundamental element into that to drive it, right? Because a lot of that safety type of experience, etc., will come through data learning. Oh.
No, and I think also car manufacturers have a tremendous asset which is completely underutilized, right? We spoke a bit about that yesterday. Also, the brand. For me, it's somehow incomprehensible how car manufacturers communicate with customers. And yes, it's a little bit like the car leaves the dealership, and after that, we know nothing, right? But that's completely wrong, right? A car has a feeling. A car has a smell. It's a very immersive experience compared to, for instance, a smartphone or a PC. It's a very immersive experience. And I think a lot of people have a certain affinity with a certain car brand, but today it's completely not utilized by any of the big automotive OEMs, and I think that's one of the best barriers against anybody who are threatening from all sorts of angles, is to really build on that experience with each consumer, right? But in an intelligent manner, right? I think it's a huge opportunity.
I think the big thing is if you bring together the two most personal devices. So it's the smartphone, which is all the time with you, and then there's the car, which is probably the biggest expenditure you have in the household, and where there's a lot of love in it. I mean, especially in Germany. In other countries, it's probably a little bit different. So if you combine those both worlds in the right way and really create consumer traction around those super cool digital touch points, I mean, then you really create value for the consumer. I mean, if for the next 5 years you will have a map on your display and that's it, I mean, this is at least not for BMW what we would like to see as a premium car manufacturer. So you have a huge opportunity and a huge obligation, basically, to bring totally different consumer experiences.
Absolutely. Christoph?
I actually couldn't agree more to what the colleagues just said. The car manufacturers tended a little bit to define everything out of the great technology. And we have the greatest super cool car out there, and the design is sleeky and everything is smelling right. And we somehow forgot to put this customer in the center of everything we do. And to really define an outside-in experience for our customers, what just said, leaving the dealership. And that's why, and we are not used to actually speak to our customers on that level. And if you deliver these digital services, and if you go to that direction in that path, I guess we are just adding up much more value to the customer's experience what we're seeing today.
Great, thank you very much. The time is running out. We have a hard stop, right? Our successor probably has listened very carefully to all of you guys, but we cannot overdo. Thank you very much, and thank you.